In this lesson, we will learn about driven keys. Let's not be fooled by the term key here. Driven keys have nothing to do with animation, but they have everything to do with relationships between channels. So here's what we can do with a driven key. We can create, let's say, a custom channel that maxes out at a value of 1, and we can have that value of 1 cause another channel to max out at a value of 35 or 55 or 255, whatever we need. So that's super helpful then, right? So here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and use a driven key to control the Mex visor. That way, when we're ready to animate, we can create some follow-through and overlap, all to enhance the realism of our animation. Very exciting, because that's how we can start to create believable performances that audiences get lost in. So here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and grab our center of gravity control, and we'll add our custom channel here because it makes sense, right? This is our animation controller, so it makes sense to find our keyable channels here. So we'll go ahead and grab this control. We'll head over to Modify, Add Attribute. I like to start with a displayable channel first because it's a way of adding a separator as well as a category so we know what channels follow. For example, what we could do is name this displayable channel Extra Controls. Now we can choose displayable. Let's go ahead and highlight that. And then we can go ahead and click Add. Notice how this channel differs from the keyable channels. Now this doesn't mean we cannot modify this channel. We can change its value if we'd like. So if we were to highlight the channel, we can middle click and drag. Notice how the value changes. So if we didn't want this channel to receive keyframes, but we still wanted to, let's say, keep track of a value, we can go ahead and use a displayable channel. That's just fine. I'm going to go ahead and set its value back to 0. What if we wanted to open this up for keyframe animation? Well, with it highlighted, we could always go to Edit and choose Edit Attribute. And then from there, once the attribute's highlighted, we can go ahead and change its name. We can make it keyable here. We could also change its min and max states if we need to. Now you can see we don't have as many options as we do in the Add Attribute dialog, but still you might find this super helpful. Sweet, I'll go ahead and make this displayable again and close out of this property window. Now if you want to remove the displayable channel or a keyable channel, what you can do is go ahead and highlight it and then go back to Edit and choose Delete Attributes. Sweet, but chances are we want to bring it back. Let's go ahead and press the Z key. Fantastic. Now another way to open this up for keyframe animation is to head over to the Channels menu, and now you can go ahead and choose Make Selected Keyable. If you would like to make this displayable again, go back to the Channels menu in the channel box and choose Make Selected Non-Keyable. And there are also hotkeys that we can use to do this a bit faster. If you were to hold down Control and right-click, you can get to your Edit menu this way. If you were to just simply right-click, you can get to your Channels menu this way. Fantastic. All right, so once we have that out of the way, let's now go ahead and create our keyable channel, and we'll name it Visor. Wonderful. We will work with a float type because we can get to precise values this way. So we can get to values of, let's say, 3.4 with a float type. Whereas if we wanted to stick with whole numbers, we can use integer. Now let's go ahead and make a minimum state, and we'll have that set to -1. Our max value will be +1, and we'll leave the default at 0. Let's go ahead and now click OK. Fantastic. It's now time to set up a driven key link between this channel and the channel that we will drive on the visor. With the visor selected, if we were to go to Animate, Set Driven Key Set Options, take a look. It's going to be loaded automatically as the driven object. That goes for any object we have selected. Once we open up this driven key window, it'll be loaded as the driven object automatically. But if you ever need to change that, just simply go ahead and define the object as either a driver or driven. So watch this. If we were to grab our center of gravity control, we can choose Load Driver, and now that gets loaded in on the right side of this window. Fantastic. So let's now do this. We'll go ahead and choose the channel that we need to control. Let's go ahead and select the visor right here from our driven key window. Just go ahead and highlight that. And then you can go ahead and press the E key to grab your rotate tool. So clearly it's going to be the X-axis that we need to control, right? So now that we know that, let's go ahead and grab the visor. You can see how it has a value of 0, great. And we want to make sure that we bring the shield or the visor object back to a value of 0 because that's our starting point. We can now highlight the visor here in our driven key window and highlight the rotate X, and now we're ready to establish an initial key. So let's do that. Take a look, there it is. All right, so now it's time to move to a different state. Let's go ahead and jump back to our center of gravity control, and we'll go ahead and set our visor state to -1. Sweet. Let's go ahead and go back to our visor, and let's go ahead and rotate it up and figure out a nice position it should be at when we reach a value of -1. I'd say this is close enough to -80, so we'll go ahead and set it to that. And now it's time to save this state by clicking key. Nice. So let's go ahead and do this one more time to set our maximum state. So we'll go ahead and set the visor to 1. We'll now go to our shield, and let's go ahead and start rotating this down. If you wanted to, you can highlight the channel from here and start middle clicking and dragging. So we're going to bring it down to a point where it doesn't intersect. So as low as we can get without it intersecting. And it looks like we could set this to about a value of 23 or so. I think that's safe. So we'll set that to 23. And now we can go ahead and choose key. So watch this. Let's go ahead and select the center of gravity. Grab our visor channel and start to middle click and drag. And there's our control. And we can't change how this transitions. So watch this. If we were to go ahead and grab the object that has the driven key established, we can then go ahead and head over to our graph editor. So that's Window, Animation Editor's Graph Editor. Feel free to press the F key if you need to zoom into your function curve. And now you can go ahead and highlight the key. If you have, let's say, your Move tool active, you can then go ahead and use that to move the key around by middle clicking and dragging. And that's a way of changing your state if you need to. Or you can go ahead and highlight your tangency after the key has been selected, and you can kind of drag that however you'd like to change your transition. Fantastic. So that's a look at driven keys. If you'd like to remove this link, just go ahead and highlight the channel, right click, and choose Break Connections. I'll go ahead and undo back because chances are we want the connection there. So that's a look at driven keys in Maya. Again, a great way to define states so that we can create an extra level of control on our rigs.